sorry it took me a while to get this to you, but late than never, right? Okay, so I'm Weather from the Summoner School Discord, and this game I'm going to be walking through a game of Singed Top versus Yasuo. At the start of all my games that I review, I like to go over win conditions because it's kind of important to have a strategy in mind, and this is one of the simplest things you can do. If you play multiple champions, it's good to try and put play a champion that's going to benefit the style your team is going to be playing. And if you play a different champion, you have to understand the role you're going to be doing. Now, I know Singed is your main, so you're probably very familiar with the way that Singed generally wants to play. But you have a couple of difficult things to work around. To work around. Yasuo is pretty hard for you to, just run down because of his mobility. It's going to be hard to stick a lot of damage onto him, stick to him. It's also going to be pretty hard in team fights because the Morgana Spell Shield and Bind could be a big problem for you. They have a lot of easy to land CC, specifically if you were to go in and try and engage, because they got two things that can root you, a follow-up root, and they got Udyr who can stun, and then they have the Spell Shield in case all else fails, right? So they have a pretty easy team to try and kite you out. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible to engage with them, especially with your team comp. You have a lot of potential between if the Taliyah does wall behind them, then, you have an easy chance to run at them. It doesn't really matter if they can CC you once, you'll get another chance because they have a wall blocking them off. Rakan also has a lot of engage potential, so if you were to secondary engage after he, goes in first, then you have a good chance there too. So, okay, that's something that means that you're still able to team fight and you're still able to do everything normal this game. It's just going to be what is going to happen with respect to split pushing, right? Split pushing is probably going to be the Yasuo split pushing or the Udyr split pushing, depending upon who gets fed. And that's kind of a mixed bag for you because you're not going to really be able to kill either of these in my mind. And it depending upon how the lane goes, Yasuo might even be able to kill you later on. So what your team is set up to do between the Master Yi ult to run someone down, the Sivir ult to run someone down, Singed to run someone down, and Rakan to engage, your team just wants to run really fast at them. The best thing you can do to set that up is having the Taliyah wall behind them. Then they can't get to a tower. If you do that, then you're able to run them down and set up a fight. All that matters then is that you set up smart fights, and the best way to set up smart fights is with proper wave control and objective control to bait out the fights that you need. If you don't have the Taliyah walling things off, because of course you're not playing for everyone on your team, then you're still able to do this with proper wave management and all of the other mobility that your team has. You don't need the Taliyah wall, it's just an extra thing to kind of ensure this. So if I was you, and judging by how much mobility your team had, I don't think I would get a Righteous Glory necessarily, but since your team is so reliant on these rushed engages, it might not be a bad idea. I would probably be putting more focus into something to help you control these side waves. And that really depends on who is ending up split pushing. You might want a Zizurot. You might want a Banner. I know Banner is a little bit less powerful than it used to be, but it's still something that I like building when I play top. The only champion I can play top as and not feed is Maokai. So you can understand my style. So my style generally is just to peel. Okay. Well, that's kind of irrelevant for this. You can look to peel, but your team is so much dive that just peeling is going to be pretty hard to do. You're going to want to probably follow up some damage because they have a lot of damage threats, and if your team's running at them, you gotta pick one of those threats and go on them, right? Something else to kind of notice, it's a little subtle, but since the Udyr has Dark Harvest, his early game is going to be a bit weaker. This means that your 2v2 top lane is probably even. I would say it even might favor your side, so I would not be shy about a level 2 or level 3 fight whenever you're 2 and the junglers are 3. So one of the things that I always kind of have trouble with is this sort of like experience and wave control that top lane has. Now, I understand this delayed last hitting thing, and I do this too. This is exactly what I do, because I want the wave to kind of push into me, and I want to try and stop it over here. if you're a champion that can push really hard, sometimes you want to try and out-push and have it bounce towards you so they absolutely can't freeze it at any point in any way. But Yasuo can usually counter early push from Singe just if he took E or Q or something. So this is already showing to be a little bit of a difficult matchup because you keep getting poked through the minion wave. Um, I'm not sure how much you expected this to happen, but I know Singe starting items, something like this, you're just going to get those potions and the Dark Seals to sustain through this little bit of harass, and you don't seem to be taking any punishing amount of damage. So I'm not like to describe this trade. So I'm trying to do your review a little bit differently, right? I'm trying to do your review. I'm still going to be a little bit macro focused, but I'm doing a little bit of micro too because I know you have good Singe mechanics, and then it becomes down to kind of decisions, right? So right now, something that you need to be kind of aware of is where the Master Yi is. So since the Master Yi is down here, right, macro-wise, you need to be playing safe. Because the Udyr, you don't know exactly where the Udyr started. You don't know, right? So Master Yi's over here. You know your Master Yi starts red, so you think he's going to potentially be able to gank for you. And bot lane does show up a little bit early. Okay, so if you're paying attention to the minimap, maybe you think Udyr started top. I know we can cheat in the spectator mode, and we can see that on the minimap he did start red. But what you need to be paying attention to is specifically whenever the Master Yi turns around. And that's because the Udyr was invading. Okay, that makes sense. But what I'm saying the reason I'm kind of rewinding to this point and talking about what's happening and why the Master Yi is leaving and this whole, like, I actually didn't even see Udyr here. I only was paying attention to where Master Yi was. You can't be taking this trade. And I know in a singed sense of things, like, it doesn't matter if you take a little bit of damage because then it just makes it more likely to chase you and shit, right? But if you're paying attention to where your jungler is and what time it is, you should be expecting the enemy jungler to be top. And if you're expecting the enemy jungler to be top, you can't take trades like this that are walking into the enemy side of the map. So what this means to me is you're not paying enough attention to the minimap. Now, thankfully, Udyr does decide to go mid instead. But you see how easy it would have been for him to gank you here. Because, you know, you already were pushed into this corner. And that would have been plenty of time for the Udyr to walk up here, and if you were pushed into this corner, you would have done the Singe thing and survive as long as possible, but probably still ultimately die to a tower or something, right? And maybe that gives Yasuo the kill still. You can't do stuff like that, and it's easy to just watch the map. Overall, like, look, the trade wasn't bad, but it's when you trade it that you need to pay more attention to, for sure. Now you both don't have potions, and you both aren't going to get jungle help, because you already saw the Udyr down. And so into jungle tracking a bit, I think that tracking the jungler is super duper duper fucking important. Because the easiest way to make a fight yours or theirs, right, to win or lose a fight, is to have an extra person, right? Fucking getting ganked loses games, and getting ganks wins games. So tracking is really important. But since you saw the Udyr down here, right, assuming you saw the Udyr down here, and you know he started red in order to do this, you know there's nothing left on this side of the map. There's no reason for Udyr to be here. See, turning on this vision, you see he's down here, but there's no reason for him to be up here. Now, in this situation, it might even be good to try and call for your Master Yi to come top. If your Master Yi, was to, instead of clearing those Krugs, come back top lane, you might have been able to, after this wave had bounced, right, that time it takes them to get up here, could have looked for this gank. Okay, so jungle tracking is important, and you know that both lanes can play aggressive now because the assumption is junglers are going to be bottom because there's nothing left on the top side of the map. That's the assumption we're working with here. But because of that, you need your positioning is unnecessary. Like, this is really safe positioning. I'm not telling you to run at him and die, but I'm telling you that in a sense of wave management, this allows the Yasuo pressure on the macro side at a time that you don't need to be giving him any pressure because there's nothing really to respect over here. And the wind up to this, right? The wind up to this is way back here because you're kind of just holding off on the wave and letting him push into you. Now, if you're talking about what could you have done or why this matters or something like that, right? Because if you took a little bit more damage, you could have potentially gotten dove by a LeBlanc. Okay, she's not going to come and dive you. Or what if, for some reason, your Talia was kiting top and the LeBlanc was following? You wouldn't be in a position to go to that. It's just these things that I'm trying to explain. I know they're not actually happening this game, but these windows that you create or that you sacrifice, there is no reason to be sacrificing this window. You take a lot of damage. You take a lot of damage in lane. Now, I know a lot of this has to deal with the matchup. I know a lot of this does have to deal with the matchup. But you're going to either need to force trades on the Yasuo, or you're going to need to start managing the wave in a different way. Because you just let him poke you through minions. Now, again, I don't play a whole lot of Singed, so I'm not sure the exact mechanics of this lane. But I do know your grounding mechanic makes it so he can't dash. And I do know you can flip him if you can walk up to him, right? He's going to be slowed, and you're going to be able to flip him. If you're just judging this by the trade you had earlier, then you're kind of right. You don't really want to look for these trades. But if he's getting close enough, like under your tower, and you ground him and then you flip him, he can't trade with you. And you were right next to your tower whenever he was poking you, right? Yasuo can't be here. He can't, because if you ground him and you flip him, he's going to take at least one turret hit. And if he takes one turret hit, you win that trade. But you give him so much respect, and you're letting him proc his Conqueror on you all the time. And if you don't trade, if you don't have any aggression in lane, whenever you're given opportunities like this, right? If your point of managing the wave down to here was to use the tower to CS or something, maybe use it so he can't harass you, you need to start punishing his positioning more. And now look, if you didn't have to TP to your lane, these are all opportunity costs, right? These are all really small opportunity costs. And the only reason you had to TP back here, right, was because the Yasuo was getting so much free poke. And the only reason he was getting so much free poke is because you weren't trying to trade with him. You were waiting for him to dash on you, and he was only queuing you through the wave. Okay, so maybe your strategy is to just outlast him, or maybe your strategy is get to mid-game or something. But you're giving him a lot of free pressure. You're giving him a lot of free damage. If you're playing macro right here, the Yasuo teleported back to lane, and the way he was pushing earlier, it's not super likely that he has this warded, but there's a chance. If he has this warded, then I still think you can get this kill on the Yasuo because Master Yi is... Oh, he's only level 3? Never mind. Maybe not. But the safe part of this is the jungler for the enemy team is down there. So that was a trade that you kind of expected. Because, of course, whenever Master Yi showed top and he got this kill, it means he wasn't going to be able to contest that dragon. And beyond that, it was something they could have done anyways because our bot lane wasn't here because of what happened earlier. So this dragon was gone. And this dragon was gone even if Yi was down there because Yi was underleveled and bot lane was super low. So this was a fine trade. Macro-wise, if you're thinking about this play was fine. If you really want to get into like the nitty-gritty details of this game though, if you want to think about way back when this started, right? So right now we're after the dragon. So you're watching the blue buff, and you're watching the blue buff because you expect an invade, right? And if not, you're just there in case. Now, if your strategy is to be there in case, then and you don't expect to get ganked until like 3 minutes, right? Something like that. You should use your ward too. If you used your ward, right? So your ward's down right here, let's say. Let's say your ward's here. 1 minute later, the ward is still going to be here. Now, ideally, you would put it like over here, right? Which should still be easy to do, and you should still be able to show up in lane on time. So since you're waiting until the last second to hit anyways, you probably could have put a ward here down at 1:30 and still made it to lane, right? So that means by 2:30, the ward is still here. And you see Udyr coming over. Now, if you see Udyr coming over, now you know you want to hard push this wave. You poison it out, and then you walk over to help. Because even though you're still level 1, you can secure your own jungler's root. And since you saw Udyr, your Master Yi knows not to do the wolves first. Right? So this is a little thing where I'm always telling people to get out early and provide vision. Well, if you're trying to extend that to like trying to predict where the enemy is going to be and doing your best to kind of like prep for that, if you're expecting any sort of invade, which honestly I would not have expected this invade because Udyr is running Dark Harvest, I would not have expected this. You want to try and ward though. And with the way you manage the wave, right, it was at your turret around whenever the jungler would have normally been there. So this was a really dangerous time, like I pointed out, because the Udyr and the Yi positioning. But then you back off. Again, a little bit of a dangerous time because 3 minutes is whenever you expect the jungler. But then, as I said, the wave is going to be right at you at 3 minutes. So again, macro-wise, if you're planning from this level 1 moment, this whatever happened level 1, you don't even need your ward for your lane because you're going to let it push in anyways, right? This ward is great and all if, Udyr was sitting here, but it would probably have been a pretty bad time to get caught by Udyr anyways. Okay, so that's the review over there. Use your ward level 1. Don't be shy about it, is what I'm trying to say. The way you manage your wave, you have it crash 3 minutes at your tower, which is good. You pick a risky trade, though, not paying attention to where your jungler is, at a bad time. Okay, now we're back to present time. And I need to turn off enemy vision. I don't know if Singed has grounding, but I think he does. He at least has a slow. So in this case, right, you created a window of time. And remember how I was pointing out earlier whenever the Yasuo had that instance to do something? Well, to push a cannon wave, it's going to take him probably 20 seconds to get it to your turret, and then it's going to be on your turret. Now, you'll probably miss one or two of those minions, but with 20 seconds, you could have shown up to this, right? Because look at whenever this started happening. You're done here, right? Look at this time you're just not doing anything. And look at what you see happening. Look at this time, all this time that you're just sitting here. Right? 20 seconds it took for the Talia to die, and the Udyr has like 200 health. All you needed to do was go there, and you would have definitely secured that kill, and you would have been back in lane in time. Because look at this wave. Okay. Okay. So one problem I'm noticing for sure is you definitely don't pay attention to the map. That was from your earlier time over here whenever you didn't see the Yi or Udyr. You don't know what to do with your wards because you didn't place one early here. You also pick an early time, or not an early, a risky time to trade with that 2.5 minute mark, knowing that your jungler could not be there. And you waste time over here with doing nothing when you could have shown up to potentially save this mid lane gank. And another thing is you take so much free damage when you have the opportunity to trade. So there's about 5 things so far. And if you had fixed these things, right, for starters, take less damage, trading, you could have TP bottom. Now all of a sudden bot lane's doing better, right? Let's say they got 1 kill. You show up mid, you got another kill. That's a big lead now all of a sudden. Cause now the Udyr is behind. Now the LeBlanc is even with the Talia. Now your bot lane's ahead. All these little trades, right? If you had TP down bottom, your team would have been the one with the dragon. Okay. So that was a very good dive. Very simple, very good. Macro-wise, I would stay for another wave here. There is nothing that's going to stop you because the Udyr is once again bottom. Because the Udyr is again bottom, Yasuo was just dead. The only person that could come is LeBlanc, and I don't think LeBlanc's coming because she just pushed in mid-wave. Yep, she's showing up bottom. So there was no one to stop this. That's an extra like 150 gold. And if you had stayed for that, right, and then you instead went to Herald afterwards, because you had potentially 3 people to be on Herald, there's nothing happening mid-wave, there's nothing to catch. And you're already going to lose bot turret, supposedly, in this scenario, right? You could get Herald and put that down in another lane, like mid lane, where they have no wave clear, and get another turret, maybe 2. Showing up bottom here is okay, too. But it didn't look like that was originally your plan. As a team, at least. Yeah, this is really awkward. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about what's happening here. It is completely pointless to chase down kills like this. Completely pointless. Because what you're doing during this time is you're losing a tower, you're losing a wave, and you're going to lose potentially another tower, but you're going to TP back to this. So you're losing TP to prevent a play later. Like the next dragon, you're sacrificing too. So all you're doing right now is you're chasing down these kills and losing on macro objectives, right? So if you're paying attention to gold, you're down here, right? 17k. After this play, you have about 18k, right? And you got 1 kill. Now watch what they get. 15.5. They're making out the same as you because they got a macro. And if you're staying for this, you're going to lose the other turret. So these turrets that you're trading are big problems. You don't need to trade like that. This is really awkward too. You're trying to overstay on this dive because you feel you need this turret, and Master Yi just goes top and saves this, which is good. But I would have been looking to, I don't know. Since Master Yi went up there, I guess you didn't have to. But you see, you weren't able to force that off. Macro-wise, this is turning out pretty well. Master Yi is playing really well. So far, I feel like you're trying to sacrifice too much to make plays. Whenever you show up bottom here, you're not thinking about the opportunity of a simple extra wave, 150 gold, potentially getting Herald, which is another mid turret, and you're willing to sacrifice 2 turrets because you're not teleporting back top. You're letting Master Yi go and do it, yes, but you can't rely on that. Like, you waited so long until after Yasuo was on the turret this far, right? You weren't using. You decided not to use your TP for that. You spend a lot of time just sitting off to the side. Your team comp is good at rush engages, but right now you're slowly but surely losing out and your team's not in position for anything. This wave over here is going to push into your tower, so you're going to lose this turret in probably 2 waves. Udyr is pushing bottom, which means that your team's going to have to respond to this turret in probably 2 waves. So by waiting off to the side and not engaging, you're wasting this time, and their team has nothing to do but group mid. Thankfully, Yasuo's dead, but that's why there are 3 of them here. So let's say you did get your engage off, right? The Sivir was forced so far out that you would have still only had a 3v3. That's not a fight that's necessarily worth forcing. Again, what you want to do to make sure you win these fights is to force a numbers advantage. And there's no numbers advantage right now. See, look at this. You're just trying super hard to engage, and your team, you have 2 people die. on the backside because you didn't have a number. There was no advantage in this fight. You're trying really hard to force it when their team is winning on the macro side. You're not managing side waves, and that's a huge part of playing Singed. Or rather, anyone. But, you know. So because you guys forced that engage, 4 people died. And again, up here, remember what I said? In like 2 waves? Okay, Yi showed up. Oh, but Yi died. Guess who got fed? I don't know how the Yi lost that. How did the Yi lose this? Oh, because he queued early, I guess. Yep, that's what happened. But yeah, you can't rely on the Yi to manage your waves like this. The Yi showed up again to try and save this top wave. And you don't peel. Yeah, you've got to peel. You just walked away from the Udyr. So far, risky trades. You don't trade whenever you're given free damage. You wait too long to start fights whenever you're losing out on macro. You're willing to sacrifice too much. You don't use your ward level 1. You don't roam mid. You're not watching the minimap for whenever the Yi is going bottom. You sacrifice a lot of pressure early by not pushing in. And again, that's normally fine. That's normally fine. It's just that if you had known what the Udyr was doing this game, it would have been useful to have pushed that in. You try and force too hard whenever you're not going to get something. You waste a lot of time down here. You pick fights when there's no advantage numbers-wise. You know, they're on the backside. You don't use your TP to get to lane whenever your tower was being attacked. You rely on the Yi to walk up there. Yeah, you need to start buying Zizurot, I think. And you do actually seem like you have the components for it. That's what you've been waiting for, right? This kind of engage. But you know what the tricky part of that engage was? You had all of the setup you potentially needed, but there was no communication, right? If there was communication here, there could have been 2 people engaging at once. And you saw Udyr top, so you did have your numbers advantage. You had Talia wall, you had the speed ups, you had everything you needed, but there was no communication. Because look how that fight started, right? He's off to the side, and then you guys are walking behind him. If you had forced them over to that side with your aggression, you could have got that. But also, Rakan's really fucking squishy. I don't even know what he's building. Yeah, he's building like full AP, no wonder. You did the right thing showing up to the Herald. You had to do that. They shouldn't have gotten the Herald, but that's again due to this wave management thing. You guys are never in the position to contest these objectives. So okay, let's talk about what's happening here with in terms of wave management, because that is one of your problems. By pushing out another mid wave, you're going to draw someone mid. That's naturally what's going to happen. And by drawing an enemy laner mid, right? And your team doesn't necessarily want to be this far pushed up. There is a possibility that 4 people on the enemy team come ready to siege, and Sivir will be gone. So by pushing out this far, you are essentially discouraging your team from being mid and encouraging the enemy team to be mid. So be very careful pushing out like this. As a champion like Singed, you want to do this. You do. You want to bring people, but you want to bring people away from where you think you'll be fighting. Right where this wave is, you only can really lose something. Because your team's not going to push this deep just yet. You're not going to get this turret. There's no way you're going to siege this down. They have everyone alive, and your team's so split right now. So you're not going to get that. There's no reason to group for this. There's no reason to push for this. But if you were somehow able to go and draw someone, let's say bottom, let's pretend you're Yasuo here. By being Yasuo bottom, you're drawing the enemy team, so Yi, maybe Sivir, maybe someone else, whoever, bottom, and Baron spawning. This is an incredibly important objective, and he's doing his job by bringing people away. Now, wave management in terms of what has been done earlier, this wave was set up to draw someone down here. Your team's wave over here is set up to draw an enemy over here. Soon, but not super soon. Like, it's going to draw someone over here, not here. But Sivir's just going to this because she feels she has nowhere else to go. And again, that's because you're pushing super far over here when you could be controlling a side wave. Ideally, you'd be controlling the bottom side wave with the Master Yi right now to try and pressure for this turret. Because Baron's not up yet. It's not up yet. And you should be able to get some damage on this turret. Plus, you know that your team's going to be around here to potentially contest Baron. 3 people this early, 20 minutes, they're not going to be able to 5v3 while Baron's attacking them. So, as Singed, I would be looking down here. The 2 of you could definitely get this kill, and you could force that tower afterwards. You end up coming down here anyways, so... Ouch. If you were with the Master Yi earlier, though, you would have definitely been able to kill the Udyr with your extra crowd control and damage. He only can hit 1 of you, he can't hit 2. You need to go bottom here, you need to start controlling this wave. You see the execution, so you know they're doing it. And the reason why they would want to do that, right? Well, in my mind, they would have put a ward down. Udyr would have warded while running into your jungle. I thought that that's why they did it, but they just decided to do it anyways. I thought that they saw the Yi. That was a good sneak. Again, that's probably just because your team had no vision here. And if your team's not warding it, buy a pink ward and ward it yourself. You need to have Baron warded 20 minutes is you need to have it warded. Again, the reason I said that they wouldn't do it was because you could contest it. How are you going to contest it if you don't know they're doing it? You guys have given up so much macro pressure. You're always floundering to try and get these fights. But you see, what are you guys defending right here? What are you defending again right here? You're sure as hell not defending this tower. You're just chasing. This is not good. This is the second time you've done this, potentially the third if you count this. Just trying to engage these fights when there's nothing to defend. Except for what you're not defending. And yes, I understand, right? Otherwise, they'd just siege the turret. Well, they're not sieging the turret because you pushed them off. You don't have to chase them. Because now you're just going to lose something. You really need side wave control. You always go mid. This is a really bad habit. And if you're trying to give Master Yi a side wave, fuck that. Master Yi is only going to side waves to kill people. Do you see that? He's only going to side waves to kill people. And the reason that he's going to side waves to kill people is because you're not pushing them, and they're pushing, the enemy laner is. They're pushing it so far that Master Yi can show up and get a free kill. Do you see what you lose when you do this? 4 times now. You just chase people. It's supposed to be the opposite, you know, the meme "don't chase Singed," but all you do is chase people. So like what would I do, right? In this game? Well, gold-wise, you're not incredibly far behind, but you do have a lot of dragons going against you too, which is going to add a good percentage to this. So you need to set up a numbers advantage. I know I keep saying that, but it's just so easy to do and so important. What I would do is I would already have Banner or Zerat. I would push out one wave top, and I would then banner the wave. I would then bring my team bottom because someone's going to respond to this, and they're going to respond to it like way over here, and no one's going to be mid right this instant because Baron's not up, and you just caught them, right? So where is their team going to be? Well, I guess they are going to be mid, but it looked like they were going bottom because they were showing up to the fight. I thought they were going to be trying to show up to this wave too, so I was wrong. But you want to be able to get those number advantages is the key. The way you do that is with wave control and vision. That fight started too early, and now you can't go back in. Do you let's see. Do you see how much damage you take before your team can show up? And that's watching the minimap. Now, since Udyr is still up and Master Yi is not, you cannot go and do Baron. So your only bet is to do what they're doing right now, or to go bottom for bottom turret. After seeing how Udyr basically soloed it earlier, Baron, you probably can't leave him alone next to Baron. I would have, as Singe, just gone for that bottom turret. Because now you're going to get inhib and they're going to get Baron. And if they get Baron, they're going to get more. You wanted to make it so that way your team had to back off and their team had to go bottom. If their team had to go bottom and your team backed off based, you could go to Baron and you could TP to Baron while someone was bottom. But now they're rushing Baron. You see, this is the trade that you knew you were doing. Because you couldn't contest after that. You had money, you were low on mana, you were low on health, and you saw how they so easily did this earlier. You didn't have to take that fight either. Do you see what's happening on a macro scale? You're winning. Do you know what was that? Do you know what the problem with that fight was? Just right here, Talia's dead, Sivir's dead. It's 3 versus 4. And you're contesting this fight. This is the 5th time you've ran at a fight. 6th time if you count the one down here. And look at the wave. Now, if in the reality, of your team was fighting a Baron over here, and you had pushed an extra wave over here, this would take this turret. You got to count before you go in. There's a rule, and I didn't think I'd have to say it, but there's a rule. You count 2 ways before you go in any fight at all. The first way you count is what is the maximum amount of enemies that can be there. In a fight like this, you count who's still alive. 4. They're all there. They're all in that fight. They're all there. Second way you count is what's the minimum for your team that can be there when the fight starts. So over here, right, whenever you took this fight, it was 1. Whenever you were over here, it was 3. 1 versus 4 isn't a fight you take, and even 3 versus 4 isn't a fight you take. Especially on a macro like this. All you had to do was stall. There's no reason to give them this fight. Yes, they rushed Baron, but you guys played it off and were able to get kills out of it, and then you just wait, and you'll win. But because you took that fight, now the only thing that they have to do is do Baron, and then they can stall out your inhibitor, and they got a huge chunk of gold. And you didn't get this. And now they'll have push priority. Yeah, this is all just follow-up from the Baron play. Now you got all their Barons gone, and all you lost was one turret. That's pretty good. You were able to respond to all these waves too. That's pretty good. Ocean Dragon at this point doesn't matter, so that's fine if they take that. Not even worth contesting. Oh, I guess it was. And you guys have no vision anywhere. Well, your team as a whole has pretty low vision score. You should be trying to get more trinkets down. Buy pink wards. They managed to pick off your inhibitor somewhere in the middle of that chaos. Okay. That's game. Alright, yeah, that's game. So, highlights, right? You need to worry about what you're doing level 1 with your ward. If you're able to do this and you manage your wave the way you did this game, you're still going to be safe whenever the jungler should be topside, and you're going to better defend your jungler's buff. If you had seen this, then you could have played that level 1 more aggressively, cleared the wave, and been able to show up for this. If you had been able to show up for this, it would have changed a lot of the game. It's a small thing, but it would have changed a lot of this game. Secondly, you don't take free damage. You need to be able to do this. I don't know if you didn't take your slow thing, whatever that is, the sticky stuff, but you need to make sure you're able to trade in all situations. So you had potential to flip him. You did. Into your tower. Get that extra damage. And if you had better managed your health pool, like maybe not taken this trade, this for starters, that trade was at a dangerous time. You don't pay attention to the minimap or jungle timers because he could have been here. And you take that trade, put yourself below half health, you then go and you sit under turret where you lose even more health, and then you can't TP bottom to that gank that happens later, which then loses dragon. You see, everything has a setup phase. It's not one simple thing. It's all of this build-up. And then what of those dragons, right? That could have been that deciding little bit of damage between a Yi auto attack and a Yasuo auto attack to win that fight. You also need to better manage side waves. You group mid a ton, and you don't need to. You let them get so much push priority on you, and you let your Yasuo be the one to respond to it. You can't do that. It's largely your job as a top laner to do that. You almost let your top turret completely die after you've proven you could 1v1 him. You fucking killed the Yasuo over here. So you're not like scared of him. You're just avoiding this lane now. You try and force plays for far too long. You also waste too much time in general, both next to your lane when you could have roamed mid, but you didn't by not paying attention to the minimap, or that other time that you were sitting here waiting while your macro was losing in both the side lanes. You try and force too many chase plays where you're just chasing people aimlessly in the jungle while you're losing macro. You don't ever want to chase. Think of what you're going to get after a fight. So one question that you ask yourself, right, is the counting question. The second question is, what can I get? If your answer is a kill, odds are that play is not worth it. Because the second part of that question, the second part of that very easy question, what can I get, is what can they get? And that's the hard question, right? But it's easy. You saw the Udyr was on this turret. You saw the Yasuo was on this turret. You know what they can get. Whenever you stayed for this inhibitor, you know what they can get. That's a huge part of decision making. So yeah, your engages also, you engage too early. You don't pay attention to intention. Over here, you let the Rakan engage by himself, even though he did not ping. You were not in position to go in. You were in position to go and like walk over to a dragon which didn't exist. You're playing like you really want to group, but you're playing a champion that doesn't group. Build-wise, my bias says that you should have a Zerot or something to help you manage side waves, but that's just the way I do it. I don't play a whole lot of different champions top lane, so perhaps you don't do that with Singed, but having more side wave control would have drastically helped your team this game. Let's see. Vision, you don't buy any pink wards. You should try and buy pink wards. And you should better use side lanes. Pay attention to when you engage, count and think about what's going to be there. Pay attention to your trading in lane. Pay attention to timers. All those are important things. Alright, well, again, better late than never, right? Alright,